The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome to another week on the Brandon Peters Show. Today we'll feature a discussion on the 1988 film Working Girl with my guest, a freelance writer who has contributed to Esquire, The Washington Post, NBC News, InStyle, The Cut, in addition to being the creator and host of the Adult Spelling Bee, Danielle Sepulveres.
Hi, that's me. All of that is me.
Mm-hmm. Welcome. I appreciate you coming on, especially I can't wait to talk about Working Girl with you. There's a lot to talk about there. But let's first take a moment, let the listeners get to know who you are. And how about we start with your writing? You've made a nice little mark with your words about pop culture, movies, health, relationships, all sorts of things. Was writing for you like an early goal, or did it sort of evolve out of something else from your life and dreams and whatnot?
So it's funny because I started writing, or almost thinking of myself as a writer, all the way back in literally the first grade. That was, I think, when I had my first journal. But I sort of had those aspirations of one day I'll write a book, and, or one day I'll write things that other people will read. But I think that was more like a fantasy. And I thought I'd have this kind of like corner office job and be an executive, and writing would almost be something I did on the side. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that I've been published in these dream outlets sometimes doesn't quite feel real. So that's it. It's exciting, but that is almost what you just said did happen. So I did work an office job when I graduated college. I've, first of all, been through way too many recessions, and this is why I'll never own a home. It's not avocado toast. It's recessions.
Yes. No.
So when I graduated college, it was really hard to find a job for like everyone in my class. And I ended up working as a headhunter in finance, which is the last thing I would have thought. I majored in mass communication and English, and with like a focus in TV production. So I thought, and my internships were in PR and at a radio station. So I thought I was going to be in a media world or entertainment in some way. And then, the jobs that were available, the very, very few, paid something like, I don't know, $16,000 a year.
Yeah.
And they tried to coerce you, being like, oh, but you get to meet bands like at a radio station, or you get to go to concerts. And I'm like, that doesn't pay bills, and I have college loans, and that's, and so I ended up interviewing for any kind of job I could find on, because back then I think it was just Monster and Career Builder were your only options.
Oh yeah.
Of job
and they
board.
suck.
Yeah, they were terrible, and they were both they both had like the same jobs on both of them, and so you would get these memberships or pay for a monthly something, and then it was awful. And so I ended up interviewing for this job, and I was sort of very discouraged at that point. But the person that interviewed me talked about headhunting as more of a relationship management kind of job. So that seemed interesting, where it was more about the dealing with people than it was about finance. Because in my first interview, I was like, I need to be honest with you, I'm terrible at math. So if that's a requirement for this job, I'm not your person. So I had this job. And at the time too, when you're right out of college, you sort of tell yourself, well, if this isn't the right fit, I'll just do this for a year and move on. And I ended up really liking it and doing really well at it, and getting my own clients and getting a lot of different candidates, because then the market started to pick up and there were jobs. And headhunters in general. I honestly have been out of the game so long, but there's this sort of sense that they're poachers and they steal people from one company and put them into another, and that's definitely true, and that definitely happens. But a lot of what I was doing, I was getting people who were unemployed and getting jobs. So I was getting thank you cards around the holidays from someone who's like, oh, I don't need to take out a second mortgage to send my kid to college because you got a job. And so that was a really nice thing. But then also, because it was finance, I dealt with a lot of pricks who, would use me for my connection to the company that was hiring and then try to completely cut me out of it and go to them directly. And so I wouldn't get a commission. So it was, but I stayed for 5 years. I left because there was a guy there who was, I don't even know what to call him. I mean, he definitely harassed me. He harassed a lot of people who worked there. And the thing was, I was very young and I was almost under the impression for most of it that it was just, you're not going to like all your coworkers and you just sort of have to put up with certain things in the office place. And we didn't have a real HR department. And it wasn't until he pulled like a really, really over the top, despicable stunt that I was like, I can't work here anymore. I can't, be in this kind of environment. And so I started interviewing for other jobs, and I found a job in advertising sales at a publishing company. And I really liked that job initially, but a few months in, because now at that point I had 5 or 6 years of corporate experience under my belt, especially in hiring and firing. So when I got there a few months in, I was like, this company is not well run. I'm like, they are spending way too much money. And this is going to, backfire. And sure enough, a few months later, all of a sudden they started laying people off. Oh. And I was worried because, the consensus is often last one in, first one out. And so I was holding my breath, and they were instead letting go people who had been there 17 years because I'm sure their salaries were really high.
Right, yeah.
So I somehow survived. And I think the main reason was I had covered my salary numerous times over with the revenue I had brought in. So when we had our year-end reviews, that was the one thing I had gone in to my meeting with and been like, hi, here's a spreadsheet of all the money that I've made for you.
Right, yeah.
I think that's what saved my job initially. And then they had more layoffs, and I survived that. I survived the first 2 rounds, and then I got the third one. The
annual purge.
Yeah, it was a terrible way that they handled things there. The day that they laid me off and a whole bunch of other people, it was a snowstorm in New Jersey. It was a state emergency.
Oh, geez.
And we had been at an event, like a company-sponsored event the night before, and our clients were there, so we'd had to stay out pretty late. And then they had sent out an email saying it would be best if we could find a way to get into the office the next day, even if it took us a while. So I had to wait for the roads to clear because it was really bad outside. Yeah. And then I had to drive, about 2 miles an hour to get there just for them to tell me that they were laying me off. It was, and the thing was, at least I didn't live that far. I felt much worse. There was one woman who's the mother of small children. So she had to get childcare for her kids because her kids didn't have school that day. Right. And she had to drive over an hour and a half away just for them to be okay, so we're laying you off. Can you imagine? You couldn't do that over the phone?
No, you could be I'm sorry we have to do it this way, but for your safety and so you don't have to go out of your way.
Just, oh my God. And
you're going to be mad at us anyway, so here you go.
And the funny thing was, a lot of my clients were at the event the night before, and they were talking to one of my bosses and being like, oh yeah, we can't wait to re-up our advertising schedules with you guys in the new year and yada, 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 and all this stuff. And one of my clients had called me that night, but I didn't get the message till later the next day. Mm-hmm. Where he was like, your boss was acting weird when I was talking about you. So they knew that they were letting me go the next day. And he had just had a sixth sense about it. And he, I guess, was trying to warn me or just sort of give me a heads up. And so then when someone took over my accounts, and called him and also several other people. They pulled out of their advertising with the company.
Hey.
out of loyalty to me, which was actually really nice.
Victory.
Yeah. But, and, and I told them, I was like, you should still do it if it's best for you guys. But I do appreciate that.
Did they find a position for you if they liked you so much?
That's like, they did not. But some of them hired, I think that was like my first time being hired to freelance, right? Like a few of them hired me to write some web content for their websites.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, and then someone made me like some free business cards to say I was like a freelance writer. And so I actually did get some good things out of that job. But yeah, there was a guy at that job. It's funny because we're going to talk about Working Girl, but
you're building it up very well.
Right. There was a guy who is so disgusting at that second job. I mean, there was a really bad guy at the first job, and I would talk about it, but it's just such a long, complicated, involved story that I feel like it would overshadow like the fun of what we're supposed to be having tonight. So I'll just tell you about the second guy.
We can maybe have the Brandon Peters Show Nights episode. That's a bonus. Comes out. You just lay it all out there.
Yes, exactly. He was an awful person. But at the second place, there was a guy that they hired, and you've seen Office Space, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So you remember how they had the Bobs come in and they're like, oh, we're interviewing for our jobs.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So they hired this guy and they called him a consultant, and it was literally like by the book Office Space. And I kept telling everyone who I was friendly with in the company, I was like, please be very careful when you talk to him, because he is reporting directly back to our bosses. Don't think that because he's very affable in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, okay, like, can't trust this guy. I just knew that he was there to, because they kept using words like, oh, he's here to streamline the company and this. And I'm like, oh, these are all buzzwords. These all mean layoffs.
Streamline. Like, yeah, I had a job where if you were training another facility about a new process in a different city, I'm like, oh, we're closing. Or that place is closing, like, because
totally.
Yeah,
that's absolutely. So so that was going on, and when I went in for my meeting, I gave him nothing. I just basically went in almost on the offensive and was just like, oh, like, this is what I do in my position on a daily basis, because he positioned it as I'm just trying to familiarize myself with what everyone does in each department. And I knew it was so he could go back and be like, oh, you don't need this person, or this person is superfluous. This position is too close to this one and it overlaps, and you can just combine it and fire this person. And I mean, I credit my headhunting background to knowing that that's what, and also Office Space. I credit Office Space for teaching me these things. And so, sure enough, like, after he showed up, that was happening. And then he got sort of more and more arrogant as time went on, and more obnoxious. And I was supposed to have a meeting with him. And I got there, and he was, as I sat down to start talking, he was like, oh, you know what? I haven't had breakfast yet. Could you like run downstairs and get me a bagel? And he's like, and toast it. And I was like, what? And the thing is, I'm in general a nice kind of accommodating person. So my initial reaction was to like get up out of my seat. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm a senior executive at this company. I run like 45 different accounts, and I'm not going to go toast this guy's bagel when we have interns in the office and assistants in the office. Like, this is him like trying to exert power over me. So I turned around and I sat down and I was like, no, I can't. I was like, I have meetings to get to later, and I'm just barely squeezing this in. So I was like, call one of the interns. And he was like, oh, they're doing other stuff for me. Like, you really can't do it. And I was like, no, I can't do it.
Get your own damn bagel. Like,
and also at this time, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. Get here earlier and get your own damn bagel. Like, what are you doing? And I used to call him George. That wasn't his name, but I called him George because he had a framed print of Sunday in the Park with George, and he talked about it all the time.
Oh my!
And so, like, when I used to talk about how much I couldn't stand him, my code word for him was George. Like, George. But yeah, so he did that, and then he commented. I can't remember now. I think it was that same day. Right around that time, my grandmother had passed away, and she had left me her wedding/engagement ring. It was like 3 bands.
Okay, yeah.
At the time, I wore it because it just, made me feel closer to her. And I was, wearing it a lot at that time. And he asked me about it and said, he said, I don't think you should wear an engagement ring if you're not engaged. And I didn't realize what he was saying at first. And then, because also I didn't think of it as an engagement ring. I just thought of it as my grandmother's ring. So I was like, I don't, not following. And then I was like, oh, my ring. And I'm like, it's my ring. I'll wear it if I feel like wearing it. And he's like, yeah, but are you engaged? And I was like, why is that your business? And he goes, I'm just saying, if you're wearing it, clients might think one thing, but if you're not wearing it, then it does, doesn't give the wrong idea. And I'm like, clients, I'm doing business with them.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to date them. And also, if you're suggesting that they'd only do business with me if they think I'm available, then we have a much bigger problem right now.
Right.
He's so, tying into Working Girl.
You did have
a million times as a kid, and I think I didn't fully believe that characters would be like the Kevin Spacey guy in the limo, and Oliver Platt and the other guy, like her 2 bosses in the beginning, pretending that they want to further her career, but they're setting her up with some guy who's like trying to assault her basically in the back of the limo. And I think I didn't fully get that it could be like that, and until I physically experienced it.
You did have the power in that one situation to make him feel like garbage. You should have said, oh, you mean my recently deceased grandmother's ring that I'm wearing? This one?
Yeah. And the thing is, I almost did that, and then I stopped myself because I'm like, he doesn't deserve an explanation. Like, my explanation is, it's my ring and I'm going to fucking wear it.
Fair enough. Then go with that one. Even better.
No, but you're right. Like, that could have been, I was just so, and it was also, I always felt so unprepared when he did stuff like that, because majority of people I've worked with are good people and, treat you with respect and, don't say these undercutting type things. And then he would be gross too. Like, one time he was talking about the way people dress in the office, and I was in a very conservative skirt suit at the time. And he said something about the way people dress, and I was looking down at myself like, I'm like, this is like a slate gray, completely buttoned up, like skirt to like below the knee. Like, what could be his issue with what I'm wearing?
Yeah.
So I said, is there some kind of dress code that I'm not aware of? And he goes, oh no. He goes, you look fantastic, but everyone else around here, you should keep dressing the way you do to set a good example. And I was like, George, not his name, but for this purpose, George,
Jorge,
if you want to institute a dress code, just institute a dress code. I'm like, you can't foster like the clothing environment you want by just assuming people are going to look at what I'm wearing and then emulate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So George
does not get high marks.
Yes, he did call me a few months later after they had laid me off and offer me my job back, but like with all these conditions to it. He was like, oh, well, we'd like to have you come back on a trial basis. It would be, no base salary. You'd be on a draw. And I was like,
we have a couple tasks we need done, and you were pretty good at them. So finish the job.
You'll have to pick up my dry cleaning.
Bagels only. This is revenge.
God.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So a big joke that I told forever is that because I've worked as a stand-in and a body double on TV film, which we'll get to, but I've been completely naked on a television set and body doubling, and I've actually been treated with more respect in that case than I was in an office environment fully clothed. So
I'll tell you, I worked on 2 movies with nudity in them when I was in Los Angeles, and it's not as whoa as you'd think. Like, it feels dirty a lot. Maybe it was just me on the set, but I got the vibe from everybody else that it's like this really calculated, make sure everybody's comfortable, controlled thing. And I was working on some cheap shit too. And I had one, where I was a sound guy, and I was accidentally in the wrong corner, and I wasn't supposed to be in the room with the topless scene. But she came over. She was like, "You're one of the nicest people on the set," so I didn't care. I wasn't going to say anything. And I think someone on like the fourth take noticed, and she was like, "He stays. That's fine." Because I'd throw football with her like between takes or whatever. She was pretty cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think the first one I ever did, they told me before, and they're like, it's certainly going to be the camera operator, the dolly grip, because it was a kind of a tracking shot, and the director. That's it. There's 3 people in the room. And I was like, okay. And it was all people I'd been working with for years. And also I was going to be facing away from camera too. I'm like, I don't even have to look at them, so it's fine.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
But yeah, it was very respectful. Like, they do the whole closed set thing where even people don't even sit by the monitors. And yeah, it's, but yeah, this is like a very long-winded way for me to talk about how I got into freelance writing. But yeah, sort of basically being unceremoniously dumped out of, office life. I had to make money, and I had to, figure out things. And I've always been, good at writing, and I just sort of had to found my niche. And initially, writing about relationships became a big thing because I had a lot of funny stories. And at first, to me, they were just stories I would tell at cocktail parties or to friends, and then would find that they were relatable to a lot of people. So when I think the first time I told one ridiculous story, I told a story about my one and only one night stand, which wasn't even truly one night stand because I knew him. But I bought him sheets afterwards. And so I wrote this ridiculous essay, which thank God the website is defunct because I don't think this should live anywhere online. But the title of it was, "I'm not good at casual sex, so I bought sheets for my one night stand."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, but it's, it is a very funny story. And if you're lucky, I will tell it again one of these days. But that was one of my first published pieces. And then that sort of spun into, different takes on relationships and relationships I had, because the very first relationship I was ever in, very serious one, I should say, in my early 20s, was emotionally abusive. But I did not know that until a while later when I was explaining things to a therapist, and she kind of identified it for me. And I was like, oh my God, I really just thought he was a massive asshole. And I was naive and learning. And then when you have healthy relationships after that, you sort of can compare and contrast and say, oh my God, that wasn't normal. It's not. And it seems so obvious and like it should have been right in front of you. And again, back to Working Girl, her relationship with Alec Baldwin. He wasn't emotionally abusive, but he was indifferent to what she wanted and didn't listen to what she wanted. And he thought his needs trumped hers always. And I mean, just the fact that he couldn't possibly understand that she wouldn't, throw everything aside, forgive him, and say yes to his marriage proposal at their friend's like wedding shower or bridal shower, whatever.
Awful, yeah.
It is. Yeah. I mean, first of all, that's rude. You don't steal someone else's thunder at another person's party. And also, she just caught you in bed like 2 nights ago with Doreen DiMucci. So, I mean, come on. How are you?
Gotcha. No, true. I have some other things for that one, but I'll save them for when we get there.
So, yeah, it's, and then you see how supportive Harrison Ford is towards her. And he kind of likes her quirkiness and rolls with it. And even though he doesn't quite understand it at first. And
right.
Because she does, she's not like all the business people that he's used to dealing with. And suddenly he's not like bored with his life anymore. And he's like, who is this person? And why is she exciting and fun and interesting? And, and like instead chooses to elevate her instead of Alec Baldwin was always changing the subject, or,
Right.
acting like her, the fact that she was going to those classes at night and then he was using that time to sleep with another woman, and thinking like that this is an okay arrangement.
Right. No, and honestly, like her whole community or her environment pre-Office stuff was kind of like that. Kind of different with that. But is there, like, with your writing, or is there a particular avenue you prefer or you feel more comfortable with?
So I feel like I evolved a little bit past just my own dating life, because also after a while you kind of don't want to write about yourself anymore. It feels like maybe you've mined like too much information, you've put too much information out there, and there's also like only so much you can say, I think, at certain stages in your life. It's one thing if you are single and then married and then divorced, or like going through these different stages. And then I think you have, kind of evolving viewpoints. And whereas if you're not going through those stages, you definitely can have evolving viewpoints. But I think also maybe only to a point, because you're still, like, for me, like, I'm not cohabitating with another person. So I don't have, stories to tell about that. I have like past stories to tell about that. And then also, there's like a certain amount of things that I want, like, just for me. And that's something in the beginning, I was just like so excited to have a byline and so interested in, like having published words for people to read out there, that I didn't stop to think about what I needed to keep for myself. And I don't regret anything that I put out there, but I'm glad that I was a little bit older when it happened too, because I think that if I had been really young when I first got published, I probably would have stuff that I would regret now. Gotcha.
I look at old pieces I wrote and I'm just like, amateur. Back in the day. Is there, was it hard, like, because you start in one area, but you've got your hand in like different places. Was it hard to break out and jump into one? Because people like to corner somebody as, oh, that's this writer and that's this writer, but you were able to talk about health and movies and stuff, like, it's all around. So, like, was it a challenge to be able to be well-rounded with it, or to get people to believe that you were?
Because I think we can be like our own worst enemies with that, and be like, well, I am only this writer. Maybe I'm not good enough to write about areas that I'm not super familiar with, but also you can learn and you can educate yourself. And granted, there's, certain topics that you can never quite become well-versed enough in, but there's plenty that you can. And, pop culture entertainment was always something that I had an affinity for, but then working behind the scenes gave me sort of an advantage and an interesting viewpoint to a lot of different things that, not a lot of people can straddle the line the way I have, and look at things as a viewer, but then also as part of it. Gotcha. So that's worked. I mean, not always, but sometimes it's an interesting perspective that editors like for some articles. And so that was sort of what helped me delve into pop culture entertainment, which then led to some places letting me just, review things or comment on things and like give my thoughts without necessarily talking about my own experience, which I think was always the point too, that, doesn't always have to center me.
Gotcha.
And it is a challenge, like the first time I wrote for Popular Science, I was so nervous, or Pacific Standard, because it was a lot of research and interviews and, kind of on topics that were interesting to me, but, not so much second nature.
Yeah.
But it was like, feels good sometimes to go outside the box and challenge yourself and try to do a good job.
Gotcha. And you, speak of good job, you have a published book. You have...
I do have a book. It was self-published back in 2011. I was sort of, the thing is, I probably should have waited a little bit because I think I could have found the right lit agent literally just a couple of years later. I think it was just a little too early with it.
Mm-hmm.
And she, the agent that I tried to work with, she had said that she'd sent it out to 10 different places. And then I found out later that she didn't actually tell the truth about that. And I sort of became disillusioned with the publishing industry in general. And so I just decided I also at the time I was in my mid-20s and actually when it came out in 2011, I was not in my mid-20s. When I wrote it, I was in my mid-20s and I was desperate to get it down on paper because I thought it was so important and like needed to be told like in that instant. So in 2011, I just had sort of gotten fed up with how publishing works. And I didn't have a platform and Twitter wasn't quite what it is now. And I just was like, I need this out there for peace of mind. And so I put it out there, and there probably would have been some benefit to waiting. But also I'm glad I got it out there too, because I have had a lot of feedback from people who say that it's the first kind of thing about that topic. Because I read about getting diagnosed with HPV when I was 23 and what ensued for 2 years where I was, afraid of developing cervical cancer because I had these precancerous cells, and it was something that wasn't on the internet. And all I could ever find was like WebMD, which was like, this may not be a big deal or it may kill you.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm 23 years old and I'm like, is there anything in the middle? Like,
yeah.
Because I'm supposed to take this seriously, but yeah. So yeah, that was that book. And I cried a lot writing it. And a lot of people who have read it told me it made them cry. So I'm like, oh, so something, osmosis, something went through there.
Right. Well, it goes hand in hand with your HPV advocacy with cervical cancer and stuff, which you have a lot of videos and done a lot with that.
That's what's been like a nice byproduct of having gotten it out there, is that I, did link up with some great organizations like Survivor, spelled CERVIVOR, run by Tamika Felder. And she is a cervical cancer survivor. And she wanted to have this group for women who couldn't find information online, didn't have people to talk to. And so I guess I've almost sort of thought of myself as like a fringe member, because I'm grateful that it didn't actually progress into something that serious, but there is a spectrum, and that kind of information should be available for everyone, like the experience that she had and a lot of the other women in that group. And then also my experience, because it's all experiences that aren't talked about enough and are heavily stigmatized. And if, you can talk to someone in her group who, went through chemo or had the full hysterectomy or partial hysterectomy or whatever they had to do to deal with it. It's really helpful to connect with someone who's been through what you've been through. And then same goes for me on my end of it, where it wasn't as simple as, oh, you had it. Oh, your body cleared it in a few months, which is what happens to a lot of people. But plenty of people also go through what I went through, which was 2 rounds of cryosurgery where they freeze your cervix, and which thankfully I don't think they do that anymore, but at the time they did. And then I had to have a what they call a LEAP procedure, where they remove a piece of your cervix where the precancerous cells are. And then they have to test you to make sure that it comes up as negative, which it did for me. But then I had to keep up with visits like every 6 months for a couple of years, until finally, after a few years of all clear, they were like, okay, you can go back to annual visits. But it really weighs on you, and it's very traumatic. And it was traumatic in a way that I didn't allow myself to sort of accept until much, much later on, because in my head, I just kept doing like a forward thinking, like I have to think like the next doctor's appointment, then the next doctor's appointment, until I don't have to do the doctor's appointments anymore.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really allowing myself to feel how I felt, if that makes sense. until later it really hit me all at once in a very heavy way. So it was a lot to contend with. And one of the reasons why I wrote what I did was because I thought if I could sort of advise anyone, it would be that you don't have to wait to feel your feelings. It's okay to feel what you're feeling, and it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to reach out to your friends. It's okay to find people that have experienced this too. And it's okay to feel embarrassed by it. Like you don't have to feel embarrassed by it, but you know, it's a normal feeling because of the way people talk about it, or the way, you know, any movie or TV show that mentions it often does it in a very kind of stigmatizing way. So
yeah, that's good stuff. On a more, I guess, upbeat topic, the adult spelling bee.
Yes.
Something that's that's that segue right there, right? Just
right. Well, we are going to do a sex education themed one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so good segue, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You saved me. But yeah, tell everyone about that. It's something I like. I've checked it out a bit. It's pretty fun, but
thank you.
Tell people about it.
So yeah, it started a couple years ago. I think I watched the National Spelling Bee on TV, and was like, hey, why don't people have like a drunk spelling bee? The way they had drunk TED Talks and drunk trivia and whatever. And I probably was having a cocktail while I said this. And then all these people were responding saying, I would totally do a drunk spelling bee. And then the more and more I was thinking about it, because I have a lot of friends who don't drink, but thought a spelling bee would be fun. And I thought, what if it's not a drunk spelling bee? What if it's just a spelling bee? And although we did, you know, when we did live versions of it on stage, like people did drink on stage in LA, so it was fun.
All right.
But it wasn't a prerequisite of like, oh, do a shot if you get a word wrong, which was like kind of my initial plan. But you know, there's only so long that could last. And
right.
I don't want to send anyone home with alcohol poisoning. So, so it sort of morphed into this really great thing that we're doing at UCB in New York and LA. And, you know, comedians are playing, writers, actors, improv people, and authors, you know, kind of all different. A lot of people just in entertainment who either have stage presence or are funny, or are very adamant that they're very good spellers. And so it's been a fun array of people. We've done a lot of different themes. And once COVID shut the world down, I took it virtual and been live streaming it on Facebook every Sunday. We do like three or 4 weeks in a row, and then I take a week or two off, depending. It's like a little bit of a loose schedule. And the first one of 2021 will be this Sunday, and the theme is
it'll be the past Sunday.
Yes.
When this airs, it'll be a couple of weeks ago, maybe. But you can still watch it.
You can still watch it because it'll be on YouTube at that point. And so it should be a lot of fun. And then we're going to do a Veep themed one the week of inauguration. And then probably the week after that will be the high school sex ed fun one where we can all tell horror stories about sex ed classes that we endured in high school, or lack thereof, I should say. Because I feel like mine was smushed in with driver's ed, where like we had like a week of stuff, and then it was like, okay, on to driving, and we were all like, okay.
I was in a very conservative Midwest area from my school, and it was like an afternoon where the boys went to this one room, the girls went to another, and then from then on it was like brushed upon in health class like one day and told like bad. They
didn't know how to teach it. I don't know if they even do, and I know it's a thing that it's not a required part of a curriculum. So only I'm trying to think. I feel like only 17 states even have it as a requirement for the curriculum, but also there's no, even out of those, I believe it's 17, I'd have to double check, but even out of that number, there's no kind of standard for the type. So they can say that they have sex education, but it could still just be, like you said, an afternoon of some
couple videos. What do you guys think? They're in the other room learning stuff that you probably should be learning, but we're not going to teach you because you're a guy. That's what my teacher sounded like. Exactly like that.
I honestly, my biggest memories of it is the Miracle of Birth video, which was disgusting.
We went to McMillan Health Center. We had a health center. We saw that one there.
Oh,
in a theater audience.
No. Oh,
and we had Tam, the robot, that was like, this is my pelvis. And then it would light up and like she'd talk like this. And
I think you should play on that spelling bee and talk about this.
Oh God. When is it?
Let me think. The 17th is the second one. So I want to say the 24th of January.
Okay. That'd be the day before this drops.
Oh, I think you should play that.
All right. Let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send you all the info. Because, I think that's an amazing story. I want to hear more about that robot.
Just hoping to do better with my children on it than I was brought.
Well, and that's, it's a big thing. Like, there's just like a lot of shame.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know. My dog is like growling, but I don't know if so. Oh, I think she's playing. I'm like, I've never heard her make that sound before.
Oh, wait, that's a fun sound. Okay, yeah. We're good.
Yeah. I'm like, it's because you start to like identify their barks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the bark to go out. This is the bark that I need food. This is, the bark that I want attention. And so just now I'm like, this is a new strain of barks, growl / whine.
Mm.
Oh God, and everyone's going to think I'm a bad dog mom, but don't worry. Someone's watching her. It's okay.
There's a sitter.
Yes. So, but yeah, the spelling bee's been really fun. Like, we did a lot of random stuff in the live ones where we would give out books to the audience because sometimes the author of that book was there as a guest judge.
Okay.
And so I wanted to sort of do something like that once we went virtual, but you can't do that because you can't see the audience, and until I can get a more sophisticated setup than just out of my bedroom. For now. What we do is everyone picks an organization that they want to play for, and then I make a donation to the winners.
Oh, okay.
And so we've had some sponsorships, though, in the past year where Wired Dads podcast and Knack Factory, they sponsored, I think it was like 4 or 5 episodes, so that I was able to donate to everyone's organization, but I just did it in varying amounts. Like, first place got the most.
Oh, okay.
For the money, and then second place got a little bit less, third place got a little bit less. But it was nice to be able to give something to all of them.
Yeah.
And, I get messages from people sometimes who watch the show and say, oh, what was the name of the organization that such and such played for? Because it sounded really cool. Because everyone talks about it in the beginning, because they usually don't just rattle off the name of an organization. They'll be like, oh, I'm playing for this because like it's from my hometown, or because they helped me with this, or, at this time of year, they could really use some extra money, so there's always a little bit of a personal attachment to the places that they're playing for. And that clearly seems to reach people. Because even for me, sometimes in the beginning, because, I'm a freelance writer who's struggling and trying to get more of a full-time stable job.
Right.
So there's only so much that I can donate. But sometimes someone would talk about a organization and they didn't win the bee that night, but the next day or two, I would still like throw some money at the organization they talked about. Cause I'm like,
gotcha.
I'm not familiar with that one, but whatever, I'll send them $20. Because,
poke them and say hello.
Yeah. Because now I know. And a great thing about it has been getting to know about so many local smaller organizations, because everyone knows about the big ones, not that there's anything wrong with sending money to Planned Parenthood or Red Cross and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of these smaller places that people kind of are opening my eyes to, and also everyone watching the bee, that's kind of a really cool byproduct of the whole thing, which
right. Yeah.
Happy about. When I was tallying it all up at the end of December, I realized I think we donated to like over 65 places. Oh,
wow.
Over the course of the year, or so maybe even like 170. I'm now forgetting the number, but it was like a lot of different places. And it was just sort of a nice thing to realize that, wow, we had a lot of fun. Once a week we're shooting the shit and spelling words and talking about various things, but also, We now I get incessant emails from everyone, but because I'm on every mailing list in the world,
Happens.
It's worth it.
There you go. So yeah, that's all. Yeah, people check it out. It's on YouTube, Adult Spelling Bee. Follow it, subscribe, get all the.
Yeah, we stream live on the Adult Spelling Bee Facebook page every Sunday, and then it's archived on the Adult Spelling Bee YouTube page. But we also have some sizzle reels on there if you just want a quick look at what it's like. There's a few overall compilations that's like 2 minutes long, and a couple of specific ones are like 1 minute long, and so just to give you a sense of how fun and silly they are.
All the hijinks,
yes,
but with a purpose.
Right.
So, and lastly, we touched upon the stand-in body double that you said you've been doing for over 10 years.
Yeah.
Television films. Do you have any notable appearances that?
Yeah, I would say, well, most people know that I was on The Good Wife for many, many years. And so I was often Juliana Margulies' hands. So we did insert shots a lot.
Oh, okay.
And so whenever they would do like a tighter shot of like pouring a wine into a wine glass, or holding a folder, or like sliding a sheaf of paper across the table, like that kind of stuff, I did a lot of that for her. And it was funny because she was doing an interview once where the interviewer commented on how long and graceful her fingers were, or something that they noticed in an episode. And she was like, "Oh, that's not me. That's my stand-in." So that was kind of cool.
Oh,
but yeah, so for her, it was mostly hand stuff. And my friend Jill Flint was a recurring guest star on the show, and I was that's the naked thing I was talking about. I was her butt.
Oh,
good.
Nice.
Very, very Joey Tribbiani Friends episode.
Yes.
I was a butt double. And so that was really fun because when the episode aired, and it was CBS, so you couldn't really see anything. It was just, they filmed as close as they could.
Right.
It aired, and somebody tweeted at Jill and was just like, "Hey, nice body," or something. And she's like, "It's not mine." And she tagged me. She was like,
"This is." And you've also, I noticed you want to die in a lot more movies. Is that a thing?
I have died. I died on The Good Wife.
Oh.
And so on The Good Wife, the characters on The Good Wife watched a show.
Oh, they didn't cut off her hands in an episode? No. Okay.
I was actually playing a character.
Oh.
And so they watched a show, a fictitious show called Darkness at Noon, which sort of mocked cable dramas, because cable dramas were always taking all the awards at award shows.
Oh, okay.
Good Wife deserved some. So it was just sort of this little tongue-in-cheek thing. Like all the characters were obsessed with this very dramatic, overwrought, soapy thing called Darkness at Noon. And in one of the last episodes of, I think it was the final season, they're watching it, and the main guy who's like always in Darkness at Noon, he gets shot. Like I shoot him, and he shoots at the same time. And then he spends like the rest of that episode like crawling and like dying in the desert. And it's very True Detective.
Gotcha.
But I die right away. So I died on that. I died on the show Dietland, which was on AMC for one season. That was I played Stella Cross, who is a porn star / entrepreneur. Oh. And so in the book Dietland, she gets shot, but they don't show it in the TV show. They just show her. They show her corpse.
Oh. Okay.
And so we shot this in this cemetery, and I'm like laid out on this funeral pyre type thing, and it's freezing cold outside. We shot it in January, and I'm in this see-through, white nightgown thing, and on this cold slab, and it was so cold. And the thing was, we shot a bunch of angles with my eyes closed, just because, as most actors will tell you about dying on screen, it's much easier to be dead with your eyes closed. And then at one point, I had my eyes open while we were like rehearsing something, and I don't know if it was the director or the assistant director was just like, oh, should we try this with your eyes open? And so then we were shooting it with my eyes open. They were like, yeah, this looks better. And then our showrunner was just like, it's really weird, but you look really good dead. Like, you're really good at playing dead. And then one of the camera operators too was like, it's eerie how good like you look dead, like how believable you are. And then there was another.
She's the best corpse.
Right. And then it was another thing in Dietland. Actually was just rehearsing for one of the actors who gets shot like a bunch of times in the chest. Like she gets like shot a bunch of times and falls down. And so I was doing the rehearsals. So I had to, because they were setting everything up. So to time everything out correctly, like our assistant director would yell shots, which is like, when like the
bang, 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 bang.
Right. And so I had to be like a million times, and then just like, fall down like kind of naturally. And there was a mat, to fall on. And so I did it a couple times. And again, our showrunner was like, how do you know how to die so well? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm going to put this on my resume.
There you go. Dies well. Like, what is it you put on your back of your head? Is it like skill set or something? Or it's like, I know how to play basketball or dying.
I know how to die. I feel like I should actually have a memoir called As I Lay Dying.
Oh, there you go.
On camera.
On camera. There you go. I only died one time in a movie. And it was like a bucket list check off because I wanted to die in a slasher movie.
Yeah.
And I got killed in a slasher movie, and I had to do like 5 takes of falling onto gravel.
Was there blood?
No blood. I was a party person during a massive attack, and hey, I'm gonna run behind the slasher guy. And he goes behind like it was a cool move, but I was a dumbass for like running toward. But I got to die, and I can see it's me, and I'm like, all right, I died in a slasher movie.
A slasher movie, you gotta be a little bit dumber than you would normally.
Oh, yeah. Yes, of course. Gotta add that. But maybe, we're learning maybe people are dumber than we
That's
think.
True.
Working Girl is directed by Mike Nichols, written by Kevin Wade, and stars Melanie Griffith, Harrison Ford, Sigourney Weaver, Joan Cusack, Alec Baldwin, Nora Dunn, Oliver Platt, Kevin Spacey, and Olympia Dukakis. If you have a keen eye, you can catch David Duchovny and Ricky Lake in the movie. And it's about when a secretary's idea is stolen from her boss, she seizes the opportunity to steal it back by pretending she has her boss's job. Okay.
I mean, I love Working Girl so much. There's like certain movies from the 80s that I love so much. And this is number one. And for a lot of the reasons I told you before that, gotcha. One, it became relatable later.
Right.
But initially it was just so inspiring to me as a younger kid to watch it and see her succeed. And, and then also as you get older, you realize like how many other themes are at play in there. And also even now, as we continue to go forward, it's sort of unfortunate that it has to be two women almost pitted against each other.
Right.
Also super common for what was going on in the 80s is like they were made to feel like there wasn't enough at the table for more than one woman. So it makes sense because I feel like it had an anniversary in the last couple of years. It must have been 2018.
Yep. 32 years old or 33 years old this year.
Yeah.
I'm getting used to it.
Yeah. And there was an oral history I remember reading that was like fascinating about how Alec Baldwin was originally supposed to be the Harrison Ford part, but then they got Harrison Ford and they bumped Alec Baldwin to that part, which I honestly think is perfect.
That's a good move.
Yeah, very good move. Because at 1988, Harrison Ford was the huge star, and Alec Baldwin was not there yet.
And later on, Harrison Ford would bump him again as Jack Ryan in Hunt for Red October to Patriot Games and stuff. So you have two Jack Ryans in one movie, and she's got to choose.
Yeah. Oh. But I mean, he did such an excellent job as the shitty boyfriend. I think all the time of the line reading when he says, "Who the fuck died and made you Grace Kelly?" Like, that's funny, and it's never not funny. And he's so like convinced of his own righteousness in the moment. And and she's even still trying to be nice and being like, "Don't yell at me." And he's just like, "I got to get things solidified in my life," and it's like such a specific kind of guy, and he just nails it.
Right.
And Harrison Ford, like, his character is a little more interesting because it was not a typical kind of guy, especially a business guy.
Right.
So I don't know. I loved her, getting everything. Loved her getting the job that she wanted. I loved her getting a guy who respected her. I mean, she passes out on him, and he, carries her to his apartment.
Well, it's supposed to be kind of the mystery of
like, and it's just, I don't know. And there's so many funny lines in it. And Sigourney Weaver is outstanding.
Right.
She's so good. And she's so perfect in that role. And she's so, as time goes on now too, I feel sorry for her because her character to me now, like, cause in the beginning, you think of her as just the villain, that she stole Tess's idea.
Right.
She's not a good person. She doesn't even work that hard at her job. She's clearly comes from money. Her family's super rich, and and she doesn't care about screwing over a secretary because, like, to get ahead. And later on, watching it now and like thinking about power dynamics and interoffice politics and all that kind of stuff, it's in my head too. Like, she's not one note. She doesn't play at one note.
No.
But that kind of person probably still was, like, in real life, like, that kind of person was definitely like scrambling to stay relevant and to prove that they deserve that job and that they could be a female boss surrounded by mostly dudes all the time.
Right.
I mean, because you sort of see that at her the party that she has, where Tess is passing out all the dumplings, where, like, she's literally just flirting with all of them. Like, she doesn't even know how to interact without being a flirt.
Right. Well, she's also, I think she's kind of a product of that, and like, she thinks that's how men are, and she has to be like that, and she treats her secretary as a man would, like, where he's like, "Oh, I'm cool with having women in power as long as they're below me at least one level," and that's how she treats Tess. And she kind of is like, "Well, if I have to bend this way," and you see she's weak around them because she has to play a game, and then Tess is to show you, no, be yourself, fight, and she's doing it another way. And I think that's, she's painted as a villain, but you can clearly see kind of what has made her the way she is a bit. So,
it's, I love Mike Nichols. I obviously, as a younger kid watching it, I didn't even realize how prolific Mike Nichols is as a director.
Oh yeah.
He did The Graduate. He did Birdcage. He has this, like, sense of the irreverent, but also knows what's important, or understands human relationships, I think, is his work.
For having to be a man directing a woman's story, he's probably a good choice for it, I think. And I was looking around, like, so this is written by a man, directed by a man, produced by men. Yeah. Like, I was looking for, I'm like, who's the ghostwriting secret woman that really informed this story to a degree? And it's none. Like, I
mean, I don't know, maybe
I'm not docking it, but that's something we look at now going in. This was normal. It's like, it's because it has a female lead that counts. And nowadays you'd be like, So I'm looking at it with today's eyes a little bit. I'm not, it's a good movie. I like the movie. So, but I'm just kind of looking around like, where's the secret here that we're not seeing?
Well, I guess it was later that he worked with Nora Ephron. So I was going to say Nora Ephron influence could have been in there with him, but I think it was later because he did Heartburn and
he did Postcards from Carrie Fisher. Maybe Carrie Fisher, this is one of her ghostwriting.
Oh no,
because she touched a lot of stuff when she was back then.
But yeah, and I love Heartburn that Mike Nichols did. I mean, I love the book more, but the movie's very good too. Like the book is an annual read for me, and thinking about his body of work too, Mike Nichols is totally the right person to have directed Heartburn as a movie.
And this is a 2-film year for him. He also had Biloxi Blues come out earlier in the year.
That's Bruce Willis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Young Bruce Willis.
Or is it Broderick? Or was it? Which one is it? I can't. I know the poster, right?
Yeah, I know the poster. I'm just
Bruce Willis. They did. I know he did. Oh, that's De Palma. That's Melanie Griffith's future. Oh my gosh! Now let's look it up. This is where it gets deleted in the edit, so it's not like people looking up Biloxi. It is Matthew Broderick, but it kind of looks Bruce Willis-ish.
Oh, it is Matthew. Oh my God, why am I thinking Bruce Willis? Oh my God.
There's a lot there's a lot of covers from when I was a kid at the video store that I was like, oh, Bruce Willis, like Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man. No, that's Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke.
You're just trying to make me feel better.
No, it happened. I think I actually thought that was for a time too when I was younger, but
it probably is. It's just the fact that we're used to Bruce Willis in an undershirt from Die Hard. And so our brains sort of did the Shazam thing, right? The Shazam effect, where we think it's like the movie with
Kazam, or some, yeah.
And right, because Shazam actually is a movie that exists.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, we think there's Kazam with like Sinbad.
Sinbad, yeah, there's that one, and it does not. Yeah. Right, like that's the thing. There was one with Shaq.
Right, I think that's like our minds like conflate those two movies somehow.
Yeah.
So people call it the Kazam effect when you don't quite remember things the right way. So that's what I'm going to call it for us. Like we thought it was Bruce Willis because the undershirt.
Yes. No, he owns that. That's his. That's his thing. But yeah, 2 films. And this is Kevin Wade who wrote his first one, and he go on to write True Colors, Mr. Baseball Jr., Meet Joe Black, and Made in Manhattan, as well as Blue Bloods on CBS.
Yeah. I am in the minority who really likes Meet Joe Black.
Oh man, do you remember the internet used to have the car hit scene as like an actual like death video? People were tweeting it like last year and being like, "This is an actual scene from a movie," and I'm like, "Don't you mock my movie." That's another one I need to return to. You got to me Return to Working Girl for the first time in a long time. I haven't seen Joe Black probably since it came out.
Wow. I mean, and that scene is ridiculous with Brad Pitt. Like, but that's sort of why, part of the reason why I love that movie. That movie is like way too long, has like too much shit happening in it. Like Brad Pitt has like attempts to do some weird Jamaican accent and like it's so there's so many things that you could say is wrong with that movie.
Yeah.
But also, I just love it so much.
You're allowed to. It hurt nobody. It's a movie. Another funny thing. So it's like the movie starts Working Girl, starring Harrison Ford.
Top billing.
I know that's an agent business decision. People's pay scale, but it's kind of funny. This is Melanie Griffith's movie with Harrison Ford.
Gosh,
on the title.
Or at least Joan Cusack, man.
Joan Cusack, yeah, like she's
80s royalty.
She is totally, and this was a big one for her too. There's a lot of Oscar nominations going around for this movie.
That's another thing about the movie is I love their friendship, and I always used to get upset at the scene where they have that argument in the office, and she's like, "You're going to be out of your home. You're out of your home and your man already, and you're going to be out of your job." And it's a scene that I love more and more as I get older, because to me now it sort of signifies that she loves Tess, but she doesn't quite get it because like she doesn't want the things that Tess wants. She doesn't need them. She
doesn't want Tess to grow beyond her, I think, is part of her. I think she's got like kind of in an opposite way, like Alec Baldwin's thing. Like I wonder how much like was Alec Baldwin led on by her to think that Tess maybe wanted to come back, because they seem to be in on the proposal thing at their engagement party, and I'm like,
Yeah, and she says he kept me there talking till 5 a.m. because she had her suitcase full of stuff. And it's very easy, I think, when there's a group of friends and certain people within that group have been dating for a very long time, that you want harmony and you want things. And so for her, the easiest thing is to be like, hey, like you can forgive him and we can go back to what we do, which is, like dollar beers on Friday night at the
right, yeah,
Staten Island, and then you're going to marry him, and I'm marrying this guy, and we're all friends, and we're all like going to have kids together, whatever. And I think a great thing about her character, she has this back and forth thing where she helps Tess, but then sort of is like, "What are you doing?" and then helps her, and then is like, "What are you doing?" and and sort of that I think that too makes sense too, because also that I'm sure a lot of women thought it was, well, it's like, I'm lucky enough just to have a job, so why am I going to try and rock the boat here and like strive for something bigger than what I have? And that's why her whole speech to her, where she's like, I want bigger than this, like I deserve better than this, and Joan Cusack's character is very much like, but like almost like she doesn't say it, but like everything about what she says to her essentially says, but why? Like, why do you need that? Like,
she's it's a phase parent kind of,
or you're like, to her, she's sabotaging herself, which, technically she does end up doing, but not on purpose, but because, Catherine's very vindictive when she finds out what's going on. But, she is like playing with fire, because she's pretending to be her boss. She, is pretending she has that office, numerous occasions. It's a very, dicey game, but also she's right. She couldn't get to where she wanted to be without doing that, otherwise she's just toiling away like all those other women in the office who are just there to punch in and punch out at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. It's a different, and it's just a different time too. This was sort of into the first decade of the woman returning or going to the workplace. Like it was where the power suit started coming up about, and it's a different era that you kind of have. Yes, shoulder pads, and you have to like kind of go back to like, you have to understand where this movie's coming from, and where it's a bit time capsule-y, but I think there's a lot of sadly stuff that still remains true, and it's an understandable story. But it was like a challenge to even get back and have that assistant secretary type position at that time. And it was like, why? It was like, it's a weird dichotomy of no, don't go back or stay at it was a. Yeah. Not that I was an adult during it and understood it, but I've read back, I've seen movies, I've kind of seen how things are, and this is the movie to showcase that. And I think it is definitely one of the like staple movies of the 80s that you should check out, because it's not only it's an Oscar nominated Best Picture film, but it like showcases like styles and stuff. It's a nice time capsule that isn't super dated. It's the 80s. It's going to look like that, although like her hair at the beginning, I'm just like,
the eyeshadow,
like, is that a wig?
The socks and the sneakers, and then the heel. Yeah, it just
like Joan Cusack's hair was some good 80s hair, but hers was like a super mullet. Yeah, what's going on?
Once she cut it and had the nice short do, I was like, yes.
Okay, that's Melanie Griffith right there. Yeah, there's some nice areas. Like the opening is this boat or ferry, whatever, taking them, and it's almost like an immigration moment in cinema, that the way they present it, like, here come the women back to it's like coming to a new world. It's interesting how he presents that with also Carly Simon. The one Oscar win they got was Carly Simon's song, who she does the soundtrack.
Honestly, that song starts playing and like my heart stops, and I'm like, I have to drop everything and watch this movie. Like, it's such a perfect song.
I got her halfway to EGOT status with this one song, because she got a Grammy. And
a thing I liked about it too is because they weren't these hip, successful women living in Manhattan, going to work every day. They were these lower end, lower class women who lived on Staten Island, taking the ferry in every day. And I guess as someone who's from Jersey who has done the commute into New York on many occasions, like to try to schlep and get a better job, it feels very familiar. Like, oh, I don't have the money to like be where I want to be just yet, so I just I have to, this is my daily commute, like every day, like back and forth until I can get to another level.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have that experience. I was Big city. Yeah, for me it was West Coast stuff, but terrible public transportation. But I mean, there's a lot of different. They were talking about. Just going through my notes here. It's chaos. But we talked about Alec Baldwin on him, and I love his buying her a gift scene. And there was a real weird cut there.
It's
like
a weird
fades,
cut there.
and I'm like, did they edit this
I
thing?
feel like they usually because she says just for once I could go for a sweater, some earrings.
Somebody could wear outside the bedroom, yeah.
Yeah. And it usually goes back to him, right? In the bed or something. And but instead now it goes right to the next
black.
scene.
It was like black and then next scene.
I noticed that. I just watched it because I just watched it recently too. And I was like, something's missing here, but I can't quite remember exactly what it is, but I know that's not what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe something got edited. I don't know.
But
I remember a sort of more fluid transition to the next scene, but I don't know. But yeah, it's such a funny scene because also it's like the ugliest lingerie.
Right. It is. And then it comes full circle at the engagement party when he buys it for the couple for Joan Cusack. And I was like, that guy. Oh, okay.
That was fun for the whole family. And you're like, yeah, like that's your boyfriend, And I think something my mom always said to me because we used to watch it together when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And, she'd be like, I love Alec Baldwin. Like, I love Harrison Ford. Like, I guess I probably first watched it more like the early 90s. That's probably the age I was. And, when it was always I think it was the party scene when they're dancing to Lady in Red.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom said, it's so funny because like she said like the same thing like every time, like in certain movies, like as if she hasn't said it 9,000 times before. And she would turn to me and be like, the problem is she's outgrown him. It's not that, sometimes you outgrow people and it doesn't necessarily mean someone's a bad person, but you outgrow them and then you can stay because you're used to it or you're comfortable, but you know that you've outgrown them. And that's why relationships end. And I remember like always thinking about that, watching that scene like for years going on. And I mean, granted, yes, it's because it's a movie, they made it a little bit easier. Like he slept with someone else, so it's much easier for her to break the ties. But I think that she's right. I think that's the overall sentiment is like more and more she's realizing that she's gone beyond their relationship. Like he wants a certain kind of person. He wants Doreen DiMucci, who's gonna be less than him and work for him and, like not strive for these things that he doesn't understand. Like, I mean, he sees her new briefcase and outfit and he's like, would you have traffic court today? Like he doesn't understand. Like, it's like those small little things with the dialogue, but also the inflection that he gives to it really shows like he's a guy. He's just this regular Staten Island guy who wants to get married and be with someone who's around.
Right.
That's what it is. And like, he clearly also is the kind of guy like, well, like he probably stopped sleeping with Doreen like once him and Tess got married because then it's like for real. Yeah. That's the sense you get from him the whole movie is like, oh, I'm just like, it's not serious now. It doesn't really mean anything. Like, but I'm just waiting for you to marry me so I can stop being an asshole.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's but like the sleeping with helps to like step back and take a perspective around her that she never probably focused on as much before and made excuses.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's terrific in this movie. Like she always looks like she's about to cry too. It's where her eyes are really glassy and watery looking, but I like these little touches that she would do. Like when she got her hair cut and went to the event, she was like still playing with it. Cause if you have like longer hair or something and lose it, you're constantly messing with it. And I was like, that's pretty well thought out. Cause they probably shot those way apart.
Totally. And another thing that I love about that scene when she walks into the party is because when I was younger and first going to my first business conference and meetings, that type of thing, there were more than a few times that I walked in way overdressed for what it was and being like, oh, this is embarrassing. Like everyone's much more casual here. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
and sort of trying to like kind of hang out on the fringe of the event so that it wasn't obvious that I'm wearing a pink poofy skirt while everyone else is in these, very dark gray, olive green, navy.
Mm-hmm. God. Yeah, I remember I went to a wedding one time in college, and all I wore was like dress pants, shirt, tie, and me and my roommate who went were like the nicest dressed people there. It was like the shotgun wedding. Oh, God. Like the next nicest had like a short sleeve button up tucked in to jeans. That was like the next. That wasn't in the wedding party, of course, but been there. That's really funny. I did like also in that scene where she shows up. There's a nice little touch when her and Harrison Ford are at the bar. And he says 2 tequilas, and he's like, doubles. And then when they do the power to the people, and she goes, the little people. And they both have a whispering moment of what they really are trying to express out of themselves in that. And they both whispered under their breath. And I thought that was pretty cute.
I love it. Yeah. That whole scene is great. And he's like, but how you look. And she's like, why do I look like I don't belong here? And he's like, no. Like, and I love how dazzled he is by her, especially because she's at such a low point right before that all of a sudden she puts her plan in motion and she goes to this party, and this like the first thing that happens is like Harrison Ford of all people comes over to her and it's like, wow, look at you.
Yeah, definitely. And did you notice like I noticed what he did? There's a way they tell you that she has fully formed from what she was into being the person in power. Did you catch what they did at all?
In that scene?
Not in that scene. In the movie in general. I'm sorry. So I noticed this. Maybe I'm reaching. I'm reaching. Tell me. When we open the movie, she's to inform her shitty boss in the bathroom, who's in the stall. Of stuff, and she has to go in the men's room uncomfortably, and later in the film they go to that wedding, she goes in the women's room, he sneaks in and is in the women's room in the stall, and then from then on she is the one in power and has him more latching on and like, and he becomes like the servant and she is in power the rest of the way. Like it was 2 bathroom scenes, and I was like, wait, and I rewound it back. I'm like, hold on, because he then gives her the information to get her out, what she has to do when she gets out of there or to get out of there. And she did that at the beginning to her boss. And now she has fully become the one in charge with that scene.
I actually never thought about that.
I was like,
there is a bathroom parallel. There's a bathroom parallel.
And it's showing her like coming into power. And from that moment on, she's in control of the whole movie. And that's when she talks right after that. She talks to the guy, gets the meeting, and it goes from there. But it was...
Because whenever I watch it, I always just think about, like, how awkward it is. Like, he goes in there to use the bathroom, and then the bride comes in, and like, in my head, he's in the stall going, oh, shit. Like, what do I do?
He flushes the toilet, comes out, doesn't wash his hands, and goes back to the... goes back. So... But he also could be buzzed, too. He sucked down the one drink and didn't have it when he went back to the bathroom, so...
And those were hurricanes.
Yeah, but that's when he becomes more observant. I was proud of myself. Like, wait, I think that's a thing there. Maybe, I don't know. I didn't see anybody else. Maybe I should write a Working Girl article, point that out so I could put it out in the universe. I don't know. But yeah, I really like that. There's also another full circle thing was like she learns who she is with snooping, and like kind of snooping. She's supposed to be checking that stuff, and then she gets taken out by the same kind of snooping, like it's when her boss does it. But it's interesting, like that whole thing. And I was hoping, you're hoping Sigourney Weaver's like, just come on, play together, and just no. Yeah. She gets drawn out like.
Yeah, it's so like, it's so funny when her and Joan Cusack go to Catherine's apartment. And they see the chandelier like coming. It's such a great shot of the chandelier coming down. She's like, "Why does it do that?" And like, I think it's for cleaning.
Right.
It's so funny because that's totally how you would feel in a rich person's place for the first time if you've never seen anything like that. They're just so, of course you would ride her exercise bike
and vacuum topless.
Yeah.
Her place. It's like, oh, okay, that was interesting.
Yeah. And so, yeah. But man, what a huge apartment that was.
Gigantic. Yeah. And it's a really the scene of her when she enters herself just kind of out of left. It's the first time we have the perspective not from Melanie Griffith's angle, from Tess' angle, and it's just kind of like, oh, okay, that all right. It's like, boop-a-doop-a-doo. But it is a funny movie. It's a I don't know, dramedy. So that fits. But yeah, I really like this movie. I watched it on Showtime's app, but I want the Blu-ray, which is not, it's out of print and going for like $80. So I have to import it from Japan for $20. So that's better. But
that's cool.
But I was like, I want to grab this movie. And the Academy Award nominations: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress for Weaver and Joan Cusack, Best Original Song. That's what won, and then Weaver and Griffith both won Golden Globes for it. So
it is a stacked movie,
and it was I should have wrote down, but it was a stacked year at the Academy Awards. I was like, okay, all right,
yeah,
a lot of competition.
It's one of those things where when you look back at not just that year, lots of years, where you're like, I wonder why like this movie didn't win or this person didn't win, and then you look up what else was happening that year, and you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, I think Gina Davis got it that year, and I was like, I wouldn't want to take one from Gina Davis. No, I don't know. But yeah, it was interesting. It's interesting. Like Harrison Ford wasn't nominated at all. I was like, oh, all right. Like he's only been nominated one time ever for an Academy Award. For Witness, that was it.
I was going to say, was it Witness or I don't remember if it was Witness or The Fugitive.
Yeah, it was Witness. Tommy Lee Jones was the fugitive, and he won. So
he did. Yeah.
But yeah, Witness, that'd be a good one to talk about in this show. I did a commentary for it a couple years ago. I can talk about it again.
It's an iconic scene where he says, "I didn't kill my wife. I don't care."
I don't care. Yep. Award. Yeah, was that the one they used in the Oscar clip thing?
I think so.
Oh gosh.
Like, I don't care.
I don't care. Oh, gosh. Oh, it's so funny. What else? This is where we just talk about something maybe we've recently taken in, books, movies, music, or maybe something we've recently published, shot, something. So, Danielle, what else?
Well, I would say that lately I've been rewatching a lot of things. Like right now I'm deep into a Veep rewatch. So partially for the spelling bee, but also it's just so good. And it's just so satisfying. But in terms of new stuff, I'm a huge fan of Cobra Kai.
Okay. Gotcha. I have not checked it out yet. It's like... I get stacks of stuff, so
it nails like the 80s nostalgia thing for me, which like some people like don't like nostalgia or don't like relying on nostalgia as or feel it's a prop in in shows or sequels or whatever. And thing is, when it first came out, someone had told me about it, and I'm like, oh, it sounds interesting. Like I would want to check it out. I loved the Karate Kid movies as a kid. It seemed like the person who told me about it didn't give me a lot of information. They're like, it's best if you just watch it, which I was glad that they didn't fully go into it. Because I think if I had heard it was from Johnny Lawrence's perspective, I would have been like, why? No. Yeah. What? And, but I think it's really well done. I think it's really funny. I think it's, smart and interesting. I think the kids are great. Like the kid who plays Miguel in it, he's so fantastic. He's such a good actor, and I hope he completely blows up from this and starts booking all kinds of movies and other things, because he's so terrific on screen, and he's good at the drama, because I mean it's a comedy show, but he has these moments of drama, and also he just has excellent comic timing. But yeah, like it's I don't know, it's really great to see a really fun ensemble cast do a show where it brings together the cast members from 30 odd years ago with this fresh group of young kids who probably just learned about those movies in the past couple of years.
Right, yeah. I took my kids to a drive-in to see a re-showing of Karate Kid the past summer.
Like,
so
they probably booked this job and were like, I better go watch those movies and find out, what the backstory is. What
right.
So, so that's been really fun. And I have a lot of friends who watch it too. So it's been a really fun thing to text about in the group chat. And I love Karate Kid. I'm sad that Mr. Miyagi is not with us anymore, because he would have been a cool addition to have on. But
you save him for the season finale of the first season finale. It's like, where's Miyagi? Oh, there you go.
Well, it's having clips from the movies to use is like the best that they can do. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Oh, actually, another person from the original movies also passed away, but recently, and he was in season 2. But it would have been cool for Mr. Miyagi to be alive to see this. But
definitely,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So we can get a time machine or raise the dead. Yeah, that's true. Myself, I've taken in some of my stacking Blu-rays to get to, but a weird movie. I'll talk about this one from Vinegar Syndrome. They do their little Black Friday sale where they put titles. They have mystery titles, and you don't know what they are till Black Friday. And then there's limited copies. Everybody goes nuts. Websites crash. It was smooth this year. One of them was called Don't Panic, and it's this 1980s possessed slasher movie, and it's really goofy. But it's like super 80s. Like, it doesn't care that it's going to be, dated next week. And it's just really weird and fun. This kid, people get possessed, and then the kid can't see anything, and it kills people. It's strange. The girlfriend has the hot girl in it has a unibrow that's really bad, and I'm just like, oh, she just looks like something. One of the It's Always Sunny people, the weird family. She fit in with them almost. Yeah, but the thing in this is, this kid, he's like 18, or no, he's like 16 something. He wears these kids pajamas in it, like little kids, and they got dinosaur on it, and the white with the red sleeves. I want a pair. I will wear the hell. If someone puts it out, I will wear the pair. It's going in my movie clothing I want to wear in public stuff. With Jesse from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, his hat that he wears when he's cleaning his room. There's a Space 1999 jacket from an episode that I want. So, folks, if you're listening and you can find me these things, I want to wear them in public. But yeah, don't panic. It's crazy. I think it comes out to order from regular retailers this month. Might be out already, but I think it came out in January as we
Please
speak.
document it if you do wear it.
I will. You will. My Twitter feed will be all pictures of me doing different things with that. I will recreate Jesse. If I can get the hat, I will recreate Jesse's cleaning room scene from Nightmare on Elm Street 2. No shame. And then I will also wear the Don't Panic pajamas maybe while I do it.
Nice.
But I want that stuff. So, I mean, I wear a Doctor Who cosplay jacket as a real jacket. So I'm not afraid. I get compliments on it all the time. It's Tom Baker's from the 1970s. It's this corduroy a jacket, and people are like, "Man, that's nice." Where's I'm like, where'd you get that? I'm like, you don't want to. It's gonna really demystify everything when I tell you what it is. But so I'm not afraid to wear pajamas in public. I'll go to work in those pajamas. So but that's what I've taken in. That'll do it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me, Danielle. It's been a joy and a fun and a pleasure meeting you, talking Working Girl. Let people know where they can keep up with you and your work.
Okay, well, first, thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me rock my new leopard robe in this podcast. My Twitter handle is at Elsep, ELLESEP, which is probably the best place to find me. That's where I post my nonsensical thoughts, and my website's up there, which is daniellesep.com. You can follow me on Instagram, which is at Danielle Sep, but really just post pictures of my dog. So if you're into that, all for it. Otherwise, I'm not that interesting on Instagram, but Twitter, I'm very interesting, I promise you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, and if you go to my website, daniellesep.com, you can also email me through there if you so desire to, after listening to this chat and want to know more about what I do or want to hire me, which would also be nice.
Do it. Hire her for stuff. All right. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD, the written work on whysoblue.com. There's more from the Brandon Peters Show this week, but until then, always remember to keep the positivity in your online film chatter.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.